The United Nations Nuclear Agency is slamming Iran for banning several inspectors for monitoring its program, which leads many to believe that Iran's going to become even more of a nuclear threat to the West. Now, to chat about this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, from the Foreign Desk, who joins us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, tensions between the International Atomic Energy Agency and Iran continue. What comes next?
You know, it's a good question. You'd think that the Iran regime, when they tell us that they're not going to move forward with their nuclear program, or that it's for peaceful purposes, or that they're keeping it under, a certain level in terms of uranium enrichment or weapon delivery, that they would be transparent and allow the inspectors to come in. But over the last 2.5 years, we have had them shut down 27 surveillance cameras. We have had them deny access to the teams that are coming in internationally to check them. And of course, we know that they've been enriching uranium anywhere from 60 to 80%, which is way over the allotted amount. So what appears to be happening, unfortunately, is from both sides, we're seeing this kind of dance between the White House and Iran's regime, where they will move forward with with their weapons program to a place where the White House will then say, but we need another JCPOA, another nuclear deal. So in the last hour of the Biden administration's term in office, we may see another nuclear deal come to fruition, perhaps even earlier than that, where then they'll claim that's the crown jewel of their foreign policy, similar to what we saw during Obama's time in office, where they will say that this is the only way to curb Iran's nuclear program. Not the fact that, where there's a will, there's a way. The fact that they have been marching forward with the program, they have been enriching uranium, and they have been obviously being very dishonest with the international community.
Now, still with Iran, gunmen opened fire on a group of paramilitary forces in southern Iran. There are reports that one person was killed and 3 others were injured. Lisa, Saturday's attack occurred on the anniversary of the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, who died while in police custody.
Yeah, so there were protests around the world in commemoration of the 1-year anniversary of her death. She, of course, became the iconic figure, the motivation behind a whole year of protests, protesting 44 years of this regime and saying, enough is enough, we want regime change. We saw protests over the weekend in the United States in multiple cities. We saw them in Canada and in Europe, and of course, inside Iran, across the country. The government came down very hard on protesters. We knew this days in advance, with increased security and lots of warnings for people to not come out onto the streets. And of course, came down very hard on protesters. Protesters, of course, being extremely courageous, very, very brave, and thinking really this is their best chance at continuing this revolution and to continue this momentum, this grassroots momentum that has really taken charge over the country. Now, things are not as it doesn't have the same steam it had in the beginning of the last September when Mahsa Amini was killed. But of course, throughout this year, we have seen spurts of protests all over the country. And of course, now the anniversary, a lot of Iranians want to remind the world and of course their own regime that they're not backing down anytime soon.
Lisa, French President Macron says the French ambassador to Niger is being held hostage within the French embassy there following a military junta which seized control of the West African nation back on July 26th.
Yes, so this is the latest development we had. Of course, the French were actually the first to say they wanted their personnel out of the country. The United States followed after that. And now we have, of course, the ambassador being held there, really in crossfire and being really drawn into the situation that has not become any better. Of course, the international community is watching this very carefully, not wanting to escalate things, but of course now the French have become involved. So I know the French are playing this very, very tenderly, not wanting this to cause any casualties and to get their ambassador out as soon as possible.
Just amazing around the world how we're all interconnected in some way or another. It's pretty incredible. It appears as though Russia has been doing a lot of whining and dining with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. One was even showered with gifts and taken to a Russian ballet performance following his meeting with Vladimir Putin. What was the main purpose of Kim Jong-un's visit? And it wasn't the ballet, was it?
Well, the ballet was a nice touch. I was just imagining Kim Jong Un sitting at a ballet in Russia, of all places. But of course, he went there to really continue this courtship and this friendship. It used to be that when the United States would sanction a nation, it would mean that it's tied directly to behavioral change, economic penalty in exchange for the behavioral change, and that would usually lead to either isolation or we would see that change. And now you have Russia, North Korea, Iran's regime, China, nations of the world that are coming together and saying, you know what? Not only can we work around the United States sanctions, we can have very lucrative deals together. Now, Russia and North Korea have had trades in the past where Russia has bought weapons parts from North Korea. As we know, they're also getting drones and other military equipment from Iran's regime, moving closer and closer to each other and saying, you know what, we're not going to be in isolation and we're not going to let the sanctions keep us down, but we will find very, very profitable deals among each other and we'll stick together. So here you go. You're seeing a lot of these different relationships blossom. And as we saw just a few months ago, China even brokered a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran's regime. So they're really taking a big role on the global stage, actually sidestepping the United States in a lot of different ways. We saw the BRICS meeting just a few weeks ago, where they want to even have a different currency that will definitely move the United States and the US dollar to the side a bit. We're not saying they're going to take over, in terms of supremacy, but they will absolutely be able to maneuver and work around sanctions at the very least.
Are there any countries thinking of brokering a deal between Russia and Ukraine right now? That war is more than a year and a half old. Tens of thousands of people have died. Lisa, millions of people have been displaced, billions of dollars sent to Ukraine. Is there any end in sight to this war?
A lot of nations have stepped up and said, "Oh, we're going to be the ones to do it," as if it's the number one global challenge right now, which it seems like it is. But you know what, Hal? It seems like there is no end in sight because of the different sides fueling this war. It's actually turned into somewhat of a proxy war, right? So the United States sending billions of dollars to the Ukrainians along with military support. And then on the other end, you're seeing Iran and North Korea and China and other nations sell weapons to Russia's government. The United States just okayed another $6 billion to Iran's regime, which of course they're going to be using for weapons development and manufacturing. It's a no-brainer. They would, of course, use that money for that. So both sides being fueled by, outside actors. And of course, that means no end in sight. And of course, the people inside these countries are the ones suffering. The Russians being forced into war, young men. And of course, on the Ukrainian side, having their homes and their cities bombed really to dust. So it's very, very, very unfortunate to watch.
Yeah, very sad. Lisa, U.S. President Joe Biden's national security advisor held 2 days of talks in Malta with China's foreign minister. Will this maybe help the strained ties between China and the United States?
That's what we're hoping. We're hoping that at least on the face of it, we see some sort of, seeing eye to eye, at least on the invasion of Taiwan, which is what the world is standing by to kind of see whether it happens or when it happens. A lot of people believe that it will absolutely happen. It's just a matter of timing. But, as we saw in the past few months, we saw Secretary of State Blinken meet with the Chinese, and he gave them a free pass on the surveillance balloons, on the copycat technology, on so much of it. It was just looking the other way and not really being tough on China for having, their own police force inside New York City, for coming after, their dissidents here on U.S. soil, for setting up labs, for, entering our places of government and penetrating our universities in ways in which they gain access. I mean, these are all things that have to be called out. But we've also seen a lot of tiptoeing around China by this administration. So we'll see what comes out of these meetings.
Now, still with China, there are concerns that the Chinese parent company of Gotion Inc., which intends to build 2 electric battery plants in Michigan, established a joint venture company with a communist Chinese military company way back in 2016.
Yes. So I have actually just placed an article inside Newsmax magazine, which should be coming out at the end of this month, about all the access that China has had in private and public settings in the United States. Privately, we're seeing a lot of what you just mentioned, which is companies that are tied to Chinese companies getting grants, buying up land, buying up farmland, getting access to property that is very close to our military sites. These are all very alarming, and the dots have to be drawn and connected in order to see what kind of access we're giving up. It's not just about buying a piece of land, and then if you're the owner of that land, you're like, wonderful, we have great buyers here, all cash offer, but all of a sudden we're seeing this access we just sold to the Chinese, and again, in very sensitive places, in industries that are extremely sensitive and give away a lot of our technology, give away a lot of our secrets, give away a lot of our military information and intel. So something to keep an eye on if it's not already too late.
Lisa, there are a number of parents groups here in Canada that are really concerned that many of their rights are being taken away when it comes to their child's gender identity in public schools. They're even having a 1 million march says hands off our children that's taking place here. Now, in Canada and the United States, but now there's a coalition of Jewish advocate groups who are suing a California school district, alleging that the school board passed an anti-Israel ethnic studies curriculum.
Yes. This is in Santa Ana, California. Of course, all the crazies are in California, not proud. Unfortunate, very unfortunate. What happened to the days when there was no hatred taught at school, but yet we didn't even have, this month and that month, and we didn't have to stop to commemorate any group, but there was also no hatred of any group. And now we're seeing, all this kind of very charged curriculum wanting to indoctrinate children, whether it's about gender, whether it's about homosexuality, whether it's about anti-Semitism, whether it's about blacks, whites, color of your skin, just teaching things in such a charged and partisan way. I think the one silver lining to this, as you mentioned, Hal, is how parents are coming together left, right, and center and just want their kids to be free of this. Why should any young child be indoctrinated with anything? They are clean slates, these children. And why are these, the better question is that why are these teachers and administrators so gung-ho on indoctrinating these children? Are they truly anti-Semites? Are they truly racist? Are they truly pro, gender reassignment to the point that they want to indoctrinate young children? And that really becomes a question. Hands off our children until they're old enough to learn about it, to decide about it. And I'm sure that psychologists across the board would agree that they're also introducing these very serious topics at a young age where it's not even age appropriate. So a lot to unpack here. And I'm so happy that parents have really gained that courage to step up and to unite and to form these groups. And in this case, litigation going forward to stop the anti-Semitism. And perhaps this will set a precedent for other school districts and others around the country to stay away from our children. Just keep it clean.
As many regions across North America have been dealing with wildfires this summer, comes word that there will be a new probe into the Biden administration's response to the Maui wildfires. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, this is interesting because, of course, there were a lot of questions when it came to the Biden administration's response to the Maui fires. First, that it was very much slow and kind of they had to pull it out of the Biden administration. I mean, why didn't he speak sooner? Why didn't he go there sooner? And then not having any transparency about the findings, a lot of cover-ups in terms of the electrical company, in terms of the responses in response to the land purchases that have been recently made there and so on. A lot of this sounds like conspiracy, but I think this investigation will tell us more, whether it is how they handled it and what they're hiding, and perhaps the people of Maui can get better answers moving forward.
Political reporter and host of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for joining us once again from the City of Angels.
My pleasure. Thank you.